Welcome to the books. We are going through the 66 books of the Bible, starting at Genesis, ending at Revelation. Hopefully, you have been following along with us thus far. If you need to catch up, all of the videos are still posted. So please don't hesitate to catch up. Most of them are about 10 or 15 minutes, except for the ones that we do on Wednesdays in person. Those are about an hour. So really quick, depending on how many notes you take, it should not take you that long to get through the two chapters or more. You're more than welcome to do more than two chapters a day, but we will be reading two chapters a day, one chapter at 8 a.m., one chapter at 7 p.m. So right now we are going to be doing chapter 19. And here we go, verse 1. Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. So, I wonder if he knows why the angels are there. And again, I'm wondering if they found at least 10 righteous people in the city. And would they be there if they did? Okay, verse 2. And he said, Hear now, my lords, please turn into your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise early and go on your way. And they said, No, but we will spend the night in the open square. So it appears Lot is trying to divert them away from being in the open. And so I'm not sure if he is aware that they are messengers of God yet, or do he think that they are just men or visitors of the city. Verse 3. But he insisted strongly. So they turned into him and entered his house. Then he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Verse 4. Now before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter, surrounded the house like hound dogs. Verse 5. That's not in the Bible. That was me. Verse 5. And they called to Lot and said to him, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them carnally. So the men wanted to know the messengers of God the same way a man knows a woman. Okay, that's what it means to know them carnally. Verse 6. So Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind him, and said, Please, my brethren, do not do so wickedly. See now, I have two daughters who have not known a man. Please, let me bring them out to you, and you may do to them as you wish. Only do nothing to these men, since this is the reason they have come under the shadow of my roof. So this statement doesn't really sit right. Why is Lot willing to give up his own daughters who had not known any man to these wicked men? All of these men are outside, old and young, and he's willing to give up his two daughters who had not known a man, right? Give them over to their wickedness instead of these men. Verse 9. And they said, Stand back. Then they said, This one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. I don't know what worse means. So they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to break down the door. Verse 10. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they became weary trying to find the door. Verse 12. Then the men said to Lot, Have you anyone else here? Son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and whomever you have in the city, take them out of this place. Verse 13. For we will destroy this place, because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So no, there were not even 10 found righteous in that city. Okay, so if you count Lot, his two daughters, his son-in-laws, and his wife, that's 6, right? Verse 14. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, Get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But to his sons-in-law, he seemed to be joking. So the daughters were married, so I'm wondering if he had other daughters and sons, because he did say, your sons-in-laws, your daughters. Verse 15. When the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. So it's still not clear if these are the 2 daughters that are wives or 2 daughters that had not known men. Verse 16. And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand, his wife's hand, and the hands of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. Verse 17. So it came to pass that when they had brought them outside, that he said, Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Okay? Escape to the mountains, lest you be destroyed. So he said, don't, nowhere in this area. Okay? Verse 18. Then Lot said to them, Please know, my lords, indeed now your servant has found favor in your sight, and you have increased your mercy, which you have shown me by saving my life. But I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil overtake me and I die. Verse 20. See now, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Please let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. Verse 21. And he said to him, See, I have favored you concerning this thing also, and that I will not overthrow this city for which you have spoken. Verse 22. Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive there. Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar. Okay. So, they were going to destroy Zoar as well, but Lot was afraid to go to the cities in the mountains, so that one city in the plain was saved. Verse 23, and I don't know if you remember Zoar from chapter 14. Verse 23. Oh, also I wanted to point out, they said they cannot do anything until he had arrived at that place, right? So sometimes when you're in a wicked place and you're still there and you're supposed to have been gone, and you like, I know God is not pleased. Why is God not doing anything? Because you're still there. You're supposed to be gone. Okay, so sometimes there are righteous people in a wicked place, and people are wondering, why haven't God destroyed this? Why haven't God destroyed this community or destroyed this city or destroyed this nation? Because there are some righteous there. Okay, so verse 23. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. Verse 24. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Can you imagine it raining fire and brimstone? Verse 25. So he overthrew those cities, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, all the plain, all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew on the ground. Okay, so for wickedness, we see that God will condemn and get rid of not only the people, but the land and everything in it. When a city becomes wicked, it even defiles the very earth, right? Verse 26, but his wife looked back behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Verse 27, and Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. 28, then he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. Verse 29, and it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. Right? So more than Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, right? He destroyed those other cities in the plain as well. Okay, so Zoar would have been included had Lot not asked to go there. Zoar, if you can remember, again from chapter 14, was called Bela. And they were a part of those 5 cities, right, that went against those powerful 4 cities. They rebelled against them and lost, right? But we know that Abraham showed his military capabilities by defeating that powerful army with only 318 of his trained servants to go get Lot back. So those four powerful cities overthrew those five smaller cities. But then Lot went against the powerful cities, okay, and destroyed them to get, not the cities, the armies, to get Lot back. So I'm going to give you an example of how that looks. So let's say if you are in South Texas. So like Brazoria, Sweeney, Clute, Wild Peach, West Columbia. Let's say they decided to rebel against Houston, San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas, right? Because they've been ruling over these smaller cities, really a bunch of cities, for 12 years. The big cities win, okay? They win, but then a man with a very strategic, trained army of 318 people end up defeating them, right, to get his kinfolk and his stuff back, okay? But remember, Abraham didn't want anything from them, okay, because those cities in the plain were wicked, and Abraham did not want any glory going to them, nor did he want any glory from them, okay? So let's read verse 30. Then Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountains, and his two daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zoar. So he left Zoar. I guess it was too close to the smoke, and he went to the mountains anyway with his two daughters. And he and his two daughters dwelt in a cave. Verse 31. Now the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come in to us, as is the custom of all the earth. Verse 32. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. Verse 33. So they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he did not know whether she lay down or when she arose. Verse 34. And it happened on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, Indeed, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight also, and you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve the lineage of our father. It seemed like a lot of, we're going to make something work, right, going on. I think it started with Sarah, but anyway. Verse 35. Then they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Verse 36. Thus both the daughters of Lot were with child by their father. And so we're seeing, even at this point, people will do things for their benefit. And just because you see things done in the Bible, unless you saw God instructed, that is not something that you should be doing if you don't know or did not see where God instructed them to do this, right? Because in her mind, she wanted to continue her father's lineage, but it's saying this is something that she said, right? Verse 37. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. Okay, so the Moabites we will definitely read more about in the coming books. And we know Ruth was a Moabitess, right? Verse 38. And the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the people of Ammon to this day. So these are the Ammonites. Okay, so both groups are mentioned as enemies and at some points allies of the Israelites all throughout the Old Testament. But now you know their origin. Okay, so it's important for you to kind of go back and link the places. And I know the reason why I use the example of common cities in Texas, because when you start to see how this played out, you will remember, and it will help you contextually see what's going on as this story unfolds, right? And so that's why I kind of go back to mention where these cities were first spoken of, so you can say, oh, so I'm sure everyone may have at this point read the story of Ruth and Boaz, and you know she was a Moabite as well. This is where her line of people came from, okay? Still the lineage of Shem, right? But it's through Lot's daughters, okay? So that concludes chapter 19. we will move on to chapter 20. I hope you all are still with us. If you get behind, as I said, they're only 10 to 15 minutes long, each chapter as I'm reading, and it's along with commentary as well. So just, as you're eating a snack, just take 15 minutes, part of your lunch break. Take 15 minutes to just catch up quickly, jot down your notes, make your connections. We're asking questions. We're writing down our questions. We're keeping tabs on where people are going. We had our first battle that was in chapter 14. These are things that you can kind of track. We're also tracking the names of God as they show up in the Bible, and these are things and places that you can kind of track to help you remember what went on, so that as you read more about these people, you'll know, oh, okay, they were there and now they're here. Oh, this is his bloodline. Oh, this is why this is happening to them, because this bloodline was cursed, or this person did this. And once you can relate in that way, it helps you understand why certain things were done, why God, because some things do look unjust, right? But here's what we must learn. When God says do something, you do it. He doesn't just tell you to do it. He tells you why, or if you don't, what will happen, right? And so what happens is people are disobedient, and the thing that God said will happen is what happens, because he cannot lie. And so when you see places in the Bible where you find that, or you feel that God is cruel, track it all the way back, right? There is some form of, there's no widespread plague or famine or oppression or slavery without disobedience with any group of people, right? So when you see it widespread and for long periods of time, that is a judgment, right? Because there is some disobedience there. And so we do well to obey God so we can stay away from calamity. Don't be in places he told us to come out of, right? Don't look back, okay? We'll see more of them looking back, and we see what happens when you continue to look back on those things. We see that now today when we look back on those things that God once delivered us out of and delivered us from. And if you've ever been driving and looking back, what direction you start turning that wheel? You start going back. If you're looking to the right or the left, that's the direction you're going to go if that's where you're looking, right? So those places and those things should become testimonies, right? Not resumes for the enemy. We don't want to glorify the enemy and what he made us do and how he had us, right? We want to give glory and honor to God of what he brought us out from and where we are now. So when we give a testimony, we're not talking more about what we used to do, right? We're talking more about how God has redeemed and saved and set us free, right? A lot of times I've heard testimonies where there's more glorifying of who you once was than who you are now, right? That's not giving God the glory, right? And it's a difference in you telling the depths of sin that you were in, and when you're kind of honoring it, right? And kind of laughing and boasting a little bit about where you were, right? So there's a difference. When you give a testimony, it is glory to God. It is honor, gratefulness, thankfulness for him bringing you out of that horrible situation, right? Of that horrible life, out of that sin. And so just a little tidbit, and we should always give testimonies. We should not be oppressed and sinning continuously, right? We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So even if you've been through some things and you run across someone who's going through a similar thing, if you've overcame it, that gives honor to God. That gives hope to others that feel like I'm going to always go down this road. And it's like, no, I used to be down that road, but now I'm on a whole different road, right? So you want to give your testimony. I believe God places people in your path for you to let them know that they can overcome as well. So I don't know how we got on testimonies, but it's a word for somebody. So God bless you all, and we will return with chapter 20. God bless.